What I'm about to reveal to you now is not just a story. It's a code. A code used by a young shepherd to bring down the greatest warrior the world has ever seen. And when you understand this secret, you'll realize it's not just about rocks and giants. It's about how to bring down any obstacle that stands against you. Today, right now, in your life. And I'm telling you, this is just one of the secrets that almost no one dares to talk about. So, if you want to continue having access to these rare revelations, which can change the way you see your battles, join our journey now. Hit the subscribe button and leave your like, so that this message doesn't die in silence. But know this, there's a reason this secret was hidden. And once you hear it, there's no going back. What has been hidden for 3,000 years was destined to be buried forever. But today, you will discover. Imagine the sun hasn't risen yet. The fog covers the valley like a veil of mourning. The ground is damp. The silence is thick, almost palpable till it's broken by the sound of heavy footsteps, the scraping of metal on the ground, and the echo of a voice that cuts the air like a blade. On one side of the valley, a hesitant army caught between fear and shame. Men carrying weapons, but who have already lost the battle before even fighting. Their eyes avoid the horizon. No one wants to look at the shadow growing on the other side. And then, he appears. Goliath, over 10 feet tall. Bronze armor gleaming in the little light that penetrates the mist. Each step sinks into the earth as if marking the rhythm of death. The spear he carries is like the trunk of a tree. His shield is a wall of metal. He doesn't just challenge, he dominates. His body speaks of absolute power, his voice unwavering in its arrogance. For 40 days, he repeats the same ritual. He descends into the valley, raises his voice, and curses. He insults, he laughs, he waits, and returns, always certain that no one will dare approach. With each passing day, fear doesn't diminish, it grows. Because fear is like a giant. It feeds on silence, waiting, and averted eyes. On the other side, in the Israeli camp, there are experienced men, war veterans. But all are trapped by an invisible wall. No spear, no sword, can pierce what paralyzes their souls. And here, there's a detail few realize. It's not just Goliath's height that intimidates, but what he represents. He's not just a man. He's the embodiment of everything that says, you can't. Goliath is a symbol, a living reminder of his limitations projected into flesh and bronze. Meanwhile, the hills surrounding the valley watch. The birds don't sing. Even nature seems to hold its breath. The Valley of Elah becomes a theater, and each day Goliath performs. The audience watches, mute, helpless. This is the setting that shapes history, a setting where victory seems impossible, and where fear has become routine. But it's precisely here, at the lowest point of human trust, that something begins to move. In the most unlikely direction possible. And it's at this moment, when no one expects it, that the valley about to become a cemetery, becomes a stage. Because the protagonist hasn't yet entered the scene. And when he does, I just changed the course of the battle. Changed the way the world understands courage and strategy. But first, you need to know who this unlikely protagonist was. Because understanding who he was, is the key to understanding what he did. While fear grew in the valley, in the hills, life moved at a different pace. Up above, a young shepherd tended his sheep, unaware that fate would call him to a scene that would change history. His name was David, the youngest of 8 brothers. No military title, no combat experience. Just the simple routine of tending animals, facing wolves and bears, and protecting what was entrusted to him. While his brothers trained for war, he trained for patience, while others learned to wield swords. He learned to listen to the sound of the wind and read signs in nature. He wasn't the hero anyone expected, and perhaps for that very reason, he was the perfect hero. It all began with a simple request from his father to bring food to his brothers in the Israelite camp. An ordinary mission, a delivery of bread and grain. But, as so often in life, the mission that seems small is actually the beginning of something immense. Upon arriving, David finds a scene he doesn't understand. Armed men, but motionless, trained warriors. Afraid to move forward, and in the midst of that heavy atmosphere, a voice he hears. For the first time, Goliath's challenge. The tone of contempt. The words laden with venom. The laughter that cuts more than a blade. David stops. You listen to the end. And then, something inside him ignites. See, any other man would have felt the same fear everyone there felt. But David wasn't shaped by the patterns of that camp. He didn't carry the same traumas, didn't repeat the same excuses. He came from a place where winning was a matter of daily survival, where delay could mean losing a lamb to a predator, where the enemy was faster, stronger, and you only had one chance to act. Goliath, for him, wasn't the end of the world. He was just another enemy to be defeated. When he begins to question why no one accepts the challenge, he is ridiculed by his own brothers. You're just a shepherd. Go back to your sheep. But what they didn't understand is that he had faced giants before. They just didn't have human form. David recalls, before King Saul, how he killed a lion and a bear to protect his sheep. He's not bragging. He's saying, I know what it's like to fight for something that matters. And this is where many go wrong. They think David's confidence stems from arrogance, but it doesn't. It comes from silent training, from battles won where no one was watching. Saul hesitantly authorizes David to face Goliath, but he tries to dress him in his armor. The weight, the metal, the discomfort. David senses immediately. If he fights like this, he'll lose before he even begins. So he makes a decision that will become a landmark. He refuses the armor. He refuses the weight that isn't his. He refuses to fight with weapons not made for him. He walks to the stream and selects 5 smooth stones. Why 5? Perhaps caution. Perhaps calculation. Perhaps because he already knew he wouldn't need more than one. At that moment, something becomes clear. The battle is no longer about physical strength. It's about strategy, confidence, and the ability to choose the battlefield. David won't fight on Goliath's field. You'll bring him to your own. And here, a revelation. This is the moment the giant begins to fall. Not from the impact of the stone, but from David's decision not to fight as the enemy expects. Every step he takes is a step that defies logic, tradition, and collective fear. And the further he advances, the clearer it becomes that something out of the ordinary is about to happen. Goliath's eyes lock on the approaching figure. He laughs. He despises. But deep down, the giant doesn't understand. Because what comes against him isn't just an adversary at us. Someone who does unplay the same game, and every giant fears what they don't understand. It was almost impossible to describe it accurately. The stone was there, embedded in the heart of the cave, as if placed by hands that didn't belong to this world. It wasn't just its size or its texture. What was striking was the sensation emanating from it. A silent yet profound force that seemed to penetrate the skin and touch directly to the soul. The ancients called it the Stone of Silence. They said it held not answers, but questions, so powerful that, once heard, they would forever change the way one saw themselves and the world. The narrator walks slowly around the rock, describing every detail. Its cracks form almost imperceptible symbols, reminiscent of ancient runes. Tiny glowing particles seem to move beneath the surface, as if something alive, breathing, waiting were within. The camera zooms in, and as the focus narrows, a faint light pulses, matching the heartbeat of the viewer. It's not an effect. It's as if the stone were alive and recognized the presence of anyone who dared to approach. Perhaps this stone isn't here to be moved, but to move you. The story goes that in ancient times, a traveler found this stone in the middle of the desert. Upon touching it, he saw no visions of the future, no ready-made answers. Instead, he saw all his fears materialized before him. It was in this internal confrontation that he discovered its true power. The stone was not an oracle, it was a mirror. If you stood before the stone of silence now, what would it show? Would it be your regrets, your lost opportunities, or perhaps a potential you fear to explore? As the question echoes, the cave slowly darkens, and the light pulsing from the stone begins to spread across the walls, revealing maps, symbols, and drawings no one had noticed before. These are coordinates to an even deeper place, a point that connects the stone's enigma to a path few dare to follow. The ambient sound shifts, blending winds and a faint metallic echo, signaling that the journey is about to advance into something more risky and revealing. And so, whoever dares to decipher the stone of silence discovers that the true enigma was never within it, but within themselves. But for every enigma, there is a price. Ancient scriptures were not written to be read hurriedly. Every line, every symbol, every number carries multiple meanings, some clear, some veiled, and some carefully hidden from all but those with eyes to see. Many sacred texts, from the Dead Sea Scrolls to the Ethiopian codices, use embedded codes that were not only ways to hide information from enemies, but also functioned as filters only persistent seekers, willing to dig deeper, could reach them. In many traditions, each letter has a numerical value. This is not merely symbolic, it is a key. For example, in the Hebrew tradition, gematria transforms words into numbers, revealing seemingly impossible connections. Have you ever imagined that two different words, but with the same numerical value, could be saying the same thing on a hidden level? Another intriguing pattern is the chiastic structure, a style in which ideas are presented in order and then repeated in reverse order, as if the text were a mirror. This creates a center that contains the most important point, often missed by superficial readers. Some passages use animal symbols, lunar cycles, or poetic descriptions to mark periods of time. These dates appear not as direct numbers, but as images or metaphors. A classic example is the week of years described in certain prophecies, which actually represents cycles of 7 years, not days. You might ask, if the message is important, why not speak clearly? The answer is simple and disturbing. In many periods of history, speaking certain truths openly meant persecution, exile, or death. Concealment was a measure of survival. Moreover, there is a spiritual logic. Precious knowledge is only kept safe when delivered to those capable of handling it. Thanks to modern tools like textual databases and artificial intelligence, it's possible to find patterns invisible to scholars of the past. Linguistic comparisons, searches for words repeated at specific intervals, and structural analyses reveal surprising connections. And perhaps, just perhaps, these discoveries are resurfacing precisely now because we live in a time when a full understanding of these messages has become necessary. But if Scripture hides codes, could these codes point to events yet to come? And this is precisely where we enter a point where history and prophecy begin to align in disturbing ways. As the centuries unfolded and humanity recorded its history in stone, clay, and parchment, a disturbing pattern emerged. In different parts of the world, civilizations too distant to maintain contact told eerily similar stories. Gods who descended from the sky, taught the arts of war and agriculture, demanded worship, and in some cases, manipulated humanity's fate as if it were a game. We hear of them in Mesopotamia, where the Anunnaki were described as those who came from heaven to earth. In Greece, they were the Olympians, with their human passions and divine powers. In Egypt, animal-headed gods ruled the earth before the pharaohs. And in the Americas, Mayan and Aztec records spoke of Quetzalcoatl and Viracocha, who mysteriously emerged to instruct and then disappeared. Despite cultural differences, all these narratives share a central detail: deliberate control over human knowledge and power. Imagine a chess master, he doesn't need to move every piece to win. He just needs to control the ones that matter. This seems to have been the strategy of the gods, or whoever they were. Intervening only at key moments in history, they shaped empires, guided leaders, fomented wars, and occasionally destroyed entire civilizations, as if resetting the board. But why? Some modern scholars believe there was, and perhaps still is, a greater purpose. A hidden project, driven from the shadows. To them, these gods were not spiritual entities in the mystical sense, but rather technologically advanced beings with a specific interest in the evolution and control of the human race. Others argue that this story has a deeper spiritual side. These gods were manifestations of archetypal force as symbols of humankind's inner struggles between light and shadow, power and submission, creation and destruction. Regardless of interpretation, the trail left by these figures is impossible to ignore. Artifacts that don't fit the official chronology, constructions impossible for the technology known at the time, and legends that, despite the geographical distance, seem like chapters of the same book. What if this book weren't just a metaphor, but a real narrative, written not with ink, but with entire civilizations as its pages? The answer may lie in the ruins that resist time, and in the next chapter, we'll travel to the heart of one of these ruins, where the secrets may finally begin to reveal themselves. In the forgotten heart of a dense forest, hidden beneath the veil of time, lie ruins that defy any simple explanation. Temples with indecipherable inscriptions, corridors that stretch like endless labyrinths, and secret chambers where light barely dares to penetrate. These structures are not mere relics. They are three-dimensional cryptograms. Guardians of secrets so profound that they defy archaeologists and historians to this day. Imagine yourself entering this labyrinth, each step echoing off the ancient walls, as your mind tries to decipher the symbols carved around you. The air is charged with the sensation of something ancient, something watching, something waiting. Among the inscriptions, one recurs frequently: a human figure confronting a gigantic shadow, a struggle that seems transcendental, more than physical, a clash between opposing forces within a single being. As you advance, revelation. The labyrinth's cornerstone bears an inscription that can only be seen in sunlight at a specific time of day, revealing an astrological chart, a key to greater understanding. But this labyrinth was not designed to be easily navigated. Its twists and turns confuse even the most experienced. It is a test, a rite of passage for those seeking hidden knowledge. And so, what seemed like mere ruins becomes a portal to a greater truth. Here, in the shadows of the stones, lies the bridge between past and present, between myth and reality. But beware, not everyone who enters this labyrinth leaves with the same answers. Get ready, because what you're about to understand could forever change the way you face your own giants. It's time to pick up your rock and knock down what's paralyzing you. Now, everything begins to make sense. The forbidden secret that felled Goliath wasn't just a stone, a sling, or physical strength. It was an invisible combination of courage, strategy, and a mind that refused to fight as the enemy expected. This secret is a universal truth, one that echoes through the centuries. Reflected in the mysteries of Scripture, the enigmas of ancient ruins, and the accounts of civilizations that preceded us. It's proof that the greatest power lies not in the weapons we carry, but in how we choose to use what we have. And herein lies the greatest lesson you can take away. Your giant is not bigger than you. He only seems bigger because you haven't yet discovered your rock. It's time to pick up that stone. It's time to face what paralyzes you, be it fear, doubt, failure, or even a past that insists on defining you. But don't do it alone. The journey to bring down your giants is challenging, but you don't have to walk alone. If you've made it this far, it means you're ready to be part of something bigger. So, I invite you to continue this journey with us. Subscribe to the channel, like this video, share this message. Because only together can we keep these secrets alive, these keys that many have tried to hide. And, most importantly, you ensure that the battles you face today are not just yours but those of everyone who has the courage to move forward. Remember, the giant only wins when you accept the fight he expects. When you change the rules of the game, when you choose your own stone. Victory isn't a matter of luck, it's a matter of decision.